We'll move on, Keith, to the other side of Manchester, and we'll talk about Manchester City. Now, what were your thoughts, Keith, on the FA Cup final for them? And actually, is it fair that some City fans were disappointed for not picking up the double this season?
Yeah, I think, look, it was a decent enough game. I thought City, could have probably done more in the last third. But nevertheless, it didn't happen. And United certainly pressed their advantage and probably did deserve the win. I think City may have been partying a bit during the week. We've seen those sort of things happen when teams have won a league. They weren't at their sparkling best, certainly, and they tried to push in the second half, but it just wasn't there in terms of the City spark. So I don't know if that was just too much fun during the week before. We'll have to wait and see what stories come out. But nevertheless, hey, listen, they've won the league, and that's the main prize.
There was some reports, Keith, saying that Pep Guardiola could be thinking of leaving Manchester City next summer. What are your thoughts on that? And is that a bad look for City ahead of the alleged 115 charges that they're going into in this whole investigation that we've discussed in previous weeks?
Well, look, this is a really interesting situation around that sort of statement being leaked out. You've got to believe that it somehow is linked with the 115 charges. Now, look, I have no idea whether City are guilty or not. I haven't been able to go through the evidence, so I'm not looking at any situations around and making any statements about guilt. But what I am saying is that Guardiola has said himself that if they were found guilty, he would go. Now, this makes sense that something like this would leak out if there's going to be what would appear to be a planned separation between Guardiola and the club, and nothing to do with the 115 charges. So that makes sense from a PR point of view. I also think, to be fair, I think Guardiola's done his time, and I think it is time for you can get stale in a position no matter what great resources you have and what a great squad you have. You've only got limited energy. We've seen it with Klopp, and I think that could be the right time to go as well. So there's a mixture of both, but certainly it helps in terms of a PR look when these 115 charges are going to be in the media continually when that case gets going, and the impact that could have on Guardiola. Look, I think he's a pure football man, and I think he wants to maintain his position as a great manager, which he undoubtedly is. And so I think it may make sense for both parties to go. And a good byproduct of them departing is that this PR strategy on the 115 charges doesn't make it look as though that's what's forced him out. So I think it's a win-win for both sides.
Although if we look from the club's perspective, Keith, how big of a blow will it be when he leaves? And actually, I know people have spoken about Jurgen Klopp leaving Liverpool, Sir Alex Ferguson leaving Manchester United. What impact will it have when Guardiola eventually does go on Man City? And do you think it'll be someone that immediately picks up the reins, or actually will it be a real rebuild job for the next potential manager?
Well, the good thing they've got is that if this is true that he is going to quit, then there's a lot of time now to do the succession planning. And, with Ferran Soriano at the CEO and Texi Bergestan, they've got the cleverest brains there to try and make sure they pick the right manager. They will have had 2 or 3 people in their mind for the last couple of years. I'm sure everybody that is clever enough to do succession planning, like Brighton have done to a great extreme, will know that's what they have to do. So they will have a couple of targets already. They'll know that the style of manager they want, and I don't think it'll be that big a problem for City, to be honest. Guardiola, look, he's been superb. We all recognise that, and he is a great manager. But everybody can be replaced. The club is bigger than any one person, and I do think that they will have the right football knowledge to make the right appointment. So I don't anticipate a major problem for City, as it might have been for United, who I think got it all wrong in terms of the way they handled the issues. Now, what would be a problem, and this is what happened with Ferguson, was that when David Gill went at the same time, and so you were left with a chief executive who had handled all the player transactions, and then you had a new one coming in at the same time as the manager, as Ferguson went, and that created a huge vacuum in terms of knowledge. Now, if the chief executives and say Ferran and Tiki were to go as well as at the same time as Guardiola, that would cause a big problem, I think. But I'd hope they'll be able to handle that succession in a different way. people don't often realise, and I would say this, of course, being from the Chief Executives Union myself, but people underestimate the value and the importance of a chief executive working with a manager, being able to get the deals across the line that he wants, and being able to support him and handle him properly. It's a big difference in culture when you have that whole group leaving at one time. And so with that caveat, I think City will be okay. But if there is a big exodus, then, we'll wait and see.
Talking of new deals, Keith, it sounds like Kevin De Bruyne is keen to hold talks over a new contract. He's got 1 year left on his deal as it stands. Do you expect him to stay, given what you've just said about sort of Guardiola and sort of the impact that could have and the ripple effect? Is actually tying down De Bruyne, one of their key stars, really important to them for success and stability?
Yeah, I think it is. I think he is a crucial member of that squad. He certainly drunk the Pep Guardiola Kool-Aid. I think he's one of the great disciples of the way, and he's performed superbly for him. I think they're joined at the hip, and I would like to see him stay if that's what if Guardiola wants, which I'm sure he does. So, yes, I would expect him to stay. But again, as we've seen with Klopp, a few of the bigger players may want to go once the big manager goes. So that'll be part of the transition. But then again, De Bruyne will be of an age then that may be right time to move on as well.
I mean, keep looking at their squad, absolutely outstanding team. Are there any additions you think they need to make in the summer? Are we expecting quite a few sort of incomings and outgoings? Are we expecting movement potentially in their window, or actually could it be a sort of a summer of stability potentially?
Now, I think Guardiola's built, a very good nucleus. He's been able to freshen it up with just, 1 or 2 moves per sort of off each window. And that's what I think he'll carry on this year. I don't think there's any need for any major surgery at all, but it just needs to be refreshed slightly, and he'll have his ideas about where that will be. I've always felt Grealish, who I, obviously had at Villa, hasn't been played properly. But then again, that doesn't fit Guardiola's own formations that he likes to play. So that's one that may be a question mark as to whether Jack stays or not. We'll have to wait and see. But overall, I don't see much movement in the City squad. Just 1 or 2 possibilities.